Here's Patrick Johnston of the Johnston of Postmedia. He covers the Vancouver Canucks. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. It's sunny out.
Morning.
You know, the strawberries are turning red. So on and so on.
Oh, good.
There's just been good strawberries this year.
Go berry picking. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's start with this because we all noticed the marketing poster that was missing Elias Pettersson the other day.
Yep.
But
it's not just a poster, Matt. It's not just a poster. There's also if you go to the ticket member sign up website, they have a little video scroll at the top. There's no Petey, and there's no who, Matthew.
Well, you noticed no Thatcher Demko. We all missed that. You noticed that. What a keen eye. What do you think?
Stood out to me.
So do you think it's intentional that Pettersson and Demko were left out of this marketing material because of the possibility of a trade?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Pettersson one, there's also the option that he's just such a sort of negative image right now that's not something you want to put in front of prospective buyers.
That's crazy that you can say that. Again,
I know. If that's the case,
I know.
Probably should trade him.
Like, as I contended with him, like, there's more Pettersson jerseys than everybody else on this team on fans' backs other than Hughes. More Pettersson jerseys than anybody else.
Hughes, Pettersson, and then the mishmash.
Yeah.
No, it's wild. So that was my sort of that was my thought. Was okay, maybe it's just that. Maybe they are trying to move him. I mean, I know I think I've said that before. They've talked certainly quite a bit about it. But yeah, the Demko one, I was like, okay. And so I poked around and I talked to one person. They said, yeah, that's a way to that's part of your package for a second line center would be a guy like him. Talked to someone who's got sort of insider knowledge of what's going on there, and they're frustrated with a lot of the, there's that overall. I think we know this going back, but trying to change the culture of that room goes beyond just moving out JT Miller. There's an overall here. That they need to find a better alignment, guys. A better aligned group.
Now, just to be clear, Demko on his own with 1 year left coming off the injury is not getting you a second line center, right?
No. But, if your team, like Utah, this is just me spitballing. I mean, I don't know this one, but like a team like Utah, would you want to take a bet on him? And could you build
if you're trying to make the next step? Yep.
And could Canucks turn around and get Nick Schmaltz? Again, this is just me spitballing. I'm not actually. This is a thing. This is the kind of thing you're thinking about. What's the second line center on another team? If you're not going to be able to sign Sam Bennett,
they're not signing Sam Bennett.
No, guys. I mean, Rutherford said it himself.
Schmaltz got 1 year left too.
Rutherford has said it himself, and you check around, and it's absolutely true. They are going to have trouble signing free agents. Now, he can talk about taxes and all that, whatever, but I think it's more just the overall situation. It's the talk at departure thing, right? It's looking at what is the future here? How is this team, what is ownership's reputation? What is the overall picture here? And it's not good. There are places, there's a lot of options available to free agents this summer. And I do not think Vancouver is going to be very high on their list. So if you're looking to make a trade, make these fixes, you have to be bold, and they have to look at changing things up. And I think they want to generally change up the makeup of this team. That was something I heard going way back into the season. They realized in the end they tried. They inherited a group that had one playoff run, and were probably too pleased with themselves.
I think I've maybe asked you this before. I forget who I have and who I haven't, but are you odds on that there are a couple of wow moves by the Vancouver Canucks, like deep cut moves, changes to this team?
I mean, certainly they would like to. I mean, I think I've said this time and again for a couple of years now. They talk big. They have big ideas. Now, have they pulled a lot of those off? No.
But they're unafraid.
They're not afraid of the idea, that's for sure.
No. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's... If you're looking at their situation and saying, we have to do everything we can with Quinn Hughes this coming season, they know that. And they're going to see what they can do. And the idea that anybody is available, I think, is pretty clear. Other than Quinn Hughes.
Keep looking at the collar on your shirt.
Why?
Yeah, it's one of these modern itty bitty
mocks.
Yeah.
That's what I put on this morning. It's comfortable.
But we
Chesty's
digress.
poking out too. Yeah. Well, no, he started rubbing it, and I was like, okay, look at that. It's a chesty kind of day.
Oh my
It is.
God.
All right.
Working around the house.
No segue out of this.
Forbert re-signed. Does that give them the depth on the blue line and flexibility to trade one of those young blue liners?
Probably. Yeah. You look at the mix. I mean, you got Willander, you got Pettersson, Mancini, I guess. Although I don't know really what his real ups. I mean, he's obviously playing very well in the AHL right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Willander is the guy of those three that they would most like to trade?
Well, he's the least proven, right? Like he's the biggest. If you go with trading unknowns is what you should be doing. What do you know? Right. This goes back. This is a point that our old pal Cam Sharon made to me when we were still at Canucks Army 12 years ago, and he was advocating, no, you don't trade Luongo, you trade Corey Schneider, because you know Luongo is what he is. You think you know what Schneider is, but you don't actually know that for sure. And they ended up doing that, interestingly enough. So yeah, I mean the unknown thing. I mean, all prospects are bad, right? I don't think Tom Willander is a bad prospect, but you also know what you have right now. So, to me, the positional thing is that right side is always going to be a challenge. So, do you really want to do that?
Okay.
But if you have to do something, like, it's not going to be easy, right? Like if you were trying to get rid of, make it like the signing of Forbort was such a statement about what they want. Like obviously this season did not go well, but I heard this from way back that this was a guy they realized, no, this guy's solid, reliable. There's no clearly there's no diva element. There's no, he's not soft emotionally. There's no drama with him. He by simply being a beacon or sort of an island in the storm, like he was a guy that is a person you want on your team. And of course the lesson was that walking away with, I've said this before, Ian Cole, to a degree Nikita Zadorov, influences that want to get stuff done but in a positive way. That they recognize that was a huge problem this year.
Soft emotionally, it's quite a term.
Using the same theory, though, back to the goaltenders. You keep Demko and you trade Lankin, but you can't trade Lankin until... Well, I guess before July 1st you can't.
We are 3 Edmonton Oilers wins away from yet another lesson that you need 2 goaltenders to win a Stanley Cup.
That's the thing, right?
Pickard played well and won them games when Skinner was down and round.
I'm not the only person who said this. I know that, but there was frustration with Demko, right? Like, listen, he got hurt. It was an unusual injury. It took him a long way to come back, but over the course of the season, I think they started thinking, is this a direction we need to think about? And obviously signing Lankinen, even if they overpaid him, signing Lankinen was a statement about how they feel about it. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right, Matt. You need 2 goalies. But at the same time, if your goalies are Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard...
Well, I think they're a little offset by the guys who are playing up.
Absolutely.
Front,
that's the fundamental story. The fundamental story is 2 things, right? Like, if you look at the league... There's the sort of days of the superstar goalie standing on his head doing everything for you, the Pekka Rinne era, that's way behind us because shooters are so much better now. That's a big story. But it's also simply truth that the sort of the baseline of your perfectly fine goalie is actually higher than we realize, but it's not as, it's lower than we expect, but higher than we realized. Stuart Skinner has gotten the Edmonton Oilers, Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard have gotten the Edmonton Oilers to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. They've done enough, and it's about the whole picture. So do we talk about goalies too much? Probably. Do we overpay goalies? Do goalies get overpaid? Probably. Do you need to pay Jake Andre $8 million a year? It doesn't seem like it. He's a good goalie.
On that note, then, do the Canucks need the elite goaltender anymore? Like, how do we rate the Canucks' defense? Is it good, very good, or great?
Well, their defense was pretty good this year. I mean, they obviously had some struggles, right? Like, there were some moments that were bad, and a lot of that was on goaltending. So I don't know where the answer lies. I think their defense is pretty solid. They played pretty well defensively.
I think it's pretty solid, too. Yeah.
Right? The problem fundamentally became they did not score enough goals. And so how do you square those two things? You cannot play too defensive. That is clear. You need to actually open it up. And the Canucks struggle with that. And whether that was on Rick Tocchet or simply the complete total underperformance of Elias Pettersson, and Matt and I have argued this before, but to a degree, JT Miller. Your system was set up for your centerman to attack the middle of the ice, and that simply was not happening. So is it simply just get at least one new face in the middle? Hope that Philip Hedl is going to play this season? I mean, that just seems like such a poor plan. We know that hope is not a plan. So it's the defense, I think, is fine. I think on the whole, the goaltending is fine. I don't think it's Kevin Langton and Archer Shilovs. I think it's Kevin Langton and somebody else.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh. Well, that's news.
That's just me. I mean, that's me. But I just don't buy Shilovs. I'm on the record as being out. I think he's a great guy. Loves playing in May.
Yeah.
Loves playing. You like those guys.
Really, the same question applies to the goaltending that applies to the defense. That if you look at it right now, that's what you want. In the case of the crease, 2 starting competent goaltenders and a number 3 who has played. And you have won with, even if you didn't win with them much last year. Defense, and that's my next question for you, that looks really good. Like the 7 guys you've got, really good with Wielander and Kudryavtsev as potential fill-ins if injuries crop up as your 8th and 9. My question for you is, how do you think, with the Forbort signing, how do you think they line them up when everyone's healthy? Is Forbort playing third pair left side and DPD playing his offside on the right? With Mancini as your 7th? Or do you think Forbort's the 7th and they played the 2 kids?
Well, I mean, here's the other factor in thinking about this, and go back to the, would you play Pettersson or one of those guys questions? I mean, they are interested in Bowen Byram. They are one of many teams, but they are interested. What if you get Bowen Byram? Then, I mean, you're clearly moving somebody else out here, right? To me, Forbort is your bottom end guy. He probably, he was a really good penalty killer. So yeah, you're trying to find a way to keep him in the lineup, whether that's on the left or the right. But clearly they're going to make some kind of commitment to having a guy on his offside,
Explain the Byram interest to me.
Well, I mean, I think it's more of a long-term one, right? So if you are worried about Hughes' future, he's your plan B, right? You need a good skating, puck-moving defenseman. And in the long run, if it's not going to be Quinn Hughes, I guess Bowen Byram would look good in that spot. He's obviously not Quinn Hughes, but he still brings that style of game, which clearly you need. Like, if you're going to survive, you need a defenseman who can skate. We know that. We look at every team, that has success in any part of the game now. You have defensemen who can move. And is Byram that guy? I mean, does he have the track? He's certainly clearly an NHL defenseman. Does he have the track record to be the guy? I think so.
I'm just wondering, boy, that's the trade cost on that one. I mean, Buffalo would have to really like Elias Pettersson. Anyways.
Yeah.
Because, would they trade Elias Pettersson straight up for Bowen Byram? You're not doing that, right?
No. Elias Pettersson the center? No.
Yes, the center.
Elias Pettersson the defenseman, yes.
Oh. But I'm just saying, I don't know how all that shakes out, but that if they are obviously, they have, like I said, they're interested in that guy. So if you bring that guy in, that tells you that there is obviously a young defenseman who's going out somewhere in whether it's in that trade or another move, But it
has to be a lefty though.
To go back to the original question is this is, and you're thinking in big terms. They are thinking in big terms, and these are examples of how you think in big terms, and that means you are also moving somebody out that is
That's
young.
the other option here, guys. They just load the hell up if you think you can get Byram. Rather than, if you think it's easier to get Byram than it is a legit second-line center, do you just have emphatically the best, deepest defense in the entire National Hockey League and try to create offense from the blue line? We always say offense begins from the blue line.
Yeah.
And try to get some guys some career highs that otherwise wouldn't get it because they're being helped out by a mobile and active defense.
I mean, you do have other things to do. I talked to someone who, another person on their team, and he looked at sort of what do they actually have? What are things that they can move? You're looking at Demko, you're looking at Höglander, you're looking at Wielander, you're looking at Karamaki, you're looking at their draft pick, Elias Pettersson, the defense, Junior Pettersson, Elias Pettersson, the defenseman. Mm-hmm. it was. I've sort of been operating on. They have not a lot. Well, he's like, no, actually, no. There's more there than you realize. Like it's not. They are not in an impossible situation. It's just it's going to be, if they are going to do things, they are definitely going to be dramatic.
Moving on, the Bogey Juice poll question: did the Canucks give up on Vasily Podkolzin too soon?
I mean, I don't know if I said it at the time, but I probably should have. I certainly thought it. This was a guy, I mean, he got some stability, he got a fresh look. Maybe that is what he needed. But fundamentally, here's a guy who, as I've detailed many times before, barely played after getting drafted for 2 years, playing in a sort of a hockey culture that's young guys, their sole job is to not screw up. And then he comes here, and in his first season has 2 coaches. Played pretty well at the end.
Down the stretch, he played great.
For Boudreau. And then he's in the middle of team chaos. Boudreau doesn't really know what to do with him. And they end up breaking him that season. And he goes down to the AHL, and he tried to find his love for the game again. I mean, I think there was a lot going on in his life. We perhaps forget that he and his wife became young parents, and as we know, that is a shock to the system. It would be a shock to the system when you're 21 years old. And then, found himself under a new coach and and there just was never ending. There was no stability for him. And he's playing well. Like, listen, he's playing well. He's a useful player, but he's also, let's be clear, right now on the 4th line with the Edmonton Oilers, and he may win a Stanley Cup, and that's awesome, right?
But that makes his production even better. Like 17 games on the 4th line.
He's an effective NHL player. Like clearly, he's an effective NHL player. Could he have made these Canucks better? I think so. In the end, it like I said, was a decision made that, I mean, they had roster decisions to make. In hindsight, one of those was because they'd signed Danton Heinen, who just did not work.
And Daniel Sprong.
And
the book was out on Daniel Sprong.
Yeah, and that was a dart throw, and they thought, well, let's see what... But, like, they didn't... The player... It's funny going back and looking at some of the numbers, because Sprong's numbers in his 9 games are still pretty good. He actually was doing the stuff they wanted him to do, but they just felt in the end it wasn't going to work. So, yeah, the process was not great, because you sat back. I mean, if you go from the very beginning saying we are just simply not going to keep this player on our team, then fine. But it also felt a bit like they kind of threw a bunch of guys in the basket, and they wanted to see if everybody could make it to the cash register. And they knew at some point they may have to give something up.
Yep. Okay. We don't have a lot of time, and it's a meaty issue. But the commissioner says there are no plans to address jurisdictional tax discrepancies in the next CBA. And so the Florida teams, Dallas, Nashville, Vegas, Seattle, will continue to be able to tell free agents on July 1st, hey, the $8.5 million here goes way further than the $10 million in Ontario, BC, California, name a jurisdiction.
Yeah. Yeah, and listen, I mean... I found myself reacting to the Bissonnette Anson Carter conversation, I guess, on TNT last week, and with Bissonnette saying this is something we need to address, and Anson Carter go, well, this hasn't been a problem before, and I kind of thought myself, Anson, you're right, it hasn't been a problem before, but now it is, because those teams are good. We just hadn't noticed it before. Now I'm a bit ambivalent on this. It's clearly an issue, but also it's not an issue. I mean, it's an issue that exists for everybody. Right, so the NFL deals with this internally in the United States. The NBA deals with the fact that they have the Toronto Raptors. The Blue Jay, Major League Baseball deals with the Blue Jays, but they also again have California and New York and various other jurisdictions that have tax structures that are not the same as they are in Florida or Texas or Washington State. There are clear advantages, but I in the end I kind of fall back on saying, listen, yes, if you are being really smart, you are streamlining your cap in a way that is advantageous. But I find it also notable that the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Florida Panthers, the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights are all teams that have strong owners who have hired smart people to run their teams, who understand how to make a team work. and they are left to do their jobs. And that is fundamentally the bottom line here. And, I suppose you could have gone in and said, yeah, let's just figure this one out. We can come up with some formula to calculate for all this. And yes, sure. I don't think there would have been any reason not to do that. But I think at the end of the day, it's not as big an issue as perhaps we talk about. I mean, listen, I talked to Axel Schuster because it exists for him in MLS. I talked to Axel Schuster about this very issue, and he said, yes, like I have missed out on a player or two in sort of internally in MLS. So basically Americans and Canadians who are covered off by their structure as opposed to chasing the global market. I mean, he's like, yes, I missed out on a guy a couple seasons ago because he signed it at a level where if you're at $600,000, that makes a difference. It's $100,000 savings on the income tax by signing in another jurisdiction versus signing here. Yeah. He's like, so I can't go after those guys. But that doesn't mean, it's a global market. There's a lot of guys out there.
Well, that's it. He's got a global market, though. You don't have that in hockey to the same
but that's
degree.
also you. But he says, fundamentally, in the end, I have to work a little bit harder and I have to work a lot smarter. And that's simply the truth here. Look at the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, yes, they have Connor McDavid and they have Leon Draisaitl, two of the best players in the world, but they still built a team that's good enough to make the Stanley Cup final, right? Like, you have to make some choices. So I get it, but it's not a big deal.
I'm not as much of a hawk on this as Matt is.
I'm very hawkish on this because...
But here's the thing. Gary Bettman has never embraced capology for the fans.
Right.
So he's always said that fans don't keep track of that sort of thing. They just want to watch great hockey. So and
he's wrong.
By his own extension, though, by that logic, then what do you care if there's a little bit of an algorithm and put in where... It accommodates for that. Like somebody explained to me what the downside of running through every contract through this calculator would be. What's the downside?
Exactly.
I'm fine with that. Yeah. Like on the whole, sure. Like there doesn't seem like a real reason not to do that, but on the scale of competitive issues in terms of building your team, it's not something that's terribly high. I mean, I asked a bunch of agents. One said, Dan Milstein's yelled about this publicly. It wasn't Milstein that said this. It was a different guy. He said, yeah, maybe. But then I talked to a couple other people, and they're like, like people that work for teams, and they're just like, it's rarely a thing that really comes up. Now, I guess the question
it may not come up because it's a private conversation between the player and his accountant.
Yeah, but I guess here's my question for you. If you're...
they don't come out and say it's about the money when they sign, right? They say everything else but the money when we
go back 15 years, and our old pal Lawrence Gilman has talked about that, and they talked about it at the time. They went and said to their players, they said to the Sedins, they said, Alex Burrows, guys, if you're willing to sign for less, we can use the money we've saved on that to sign someone new. And that's certainly something, if Bill Zito is smart, he can go into a room and say to Sam Bennett or a free agent, right? He can go to a prospective free agent and say, listen, I am not going to give you as big a cap hit, but you're still going to make more money. And if that is something that rings true, that is a problem. I just haven't heard a lot of evidence of that.
That's it, though, Patrick.
I get what you're saying.
Every good team, and look, I am open-minded about I am open-minded on the argument that this is just cyclical, that Florida and Dallas and Tampa and Vegas have been exceptionally well managed, and that in a few years from now, the teams with tax advantages are not going to be representative as much as they have been in the conference finals. And so let's take a look at it over a big, large swath of time and see how advantageous it is. I'm completely open-minded to that. I am also cognizant of the fact that you've had 6 teams disproportionately represented in the conference finals here over the last 6-7 years, however long it's been. And so, and that your remedy is the next year. And if you don't remedy it in the next year, and it persists through the duration of what could be, a 5, 6, 7, 8-year CBA, then you have a competitive advantage that's going to be in place for a decade plus. Because, to use your example of Mike and Lawrence going to the Canucks and others and saying, if you guys can take less, we can redeploy it into the team and build a contender here. Bill Zito can do that with the added benefit of, and by the way, you're not even taking all that much less.
Yeah.
If you sign here as opposed to attack.
I'm just thinking aloud. Here's the other upshot of doing this, guys. Because unless you've got no move clauses on every single contract, if you deploy that strategy for contracts, hey, take a little bit less here, then we can fit more players in. 2 years into that 5-year deal, guess what? You can trade that player at his low cost to somebody else, and that player all of a sudden becomes a smashing deal for somebody else, and you get to extract even more value out of that contract.
So
if you want.
Any way you slice it, these clubs have the ability to extract more value out of the salary cap, Patrick, and that is the exact principle that they went after on the backdiving contracts.
And here's the thing, and I wasn't really able to dig out. It asked the PA a question about this. I didn't hear back, but I found myself thinking at the same time, if you're the PA, why are you agreeing to such a system? Because it's
more money.
No, because your players in Florida and Tampa and Texas and Washington and Nevada are making more money, right? Like they're making their salaries, and it's a thing that they like. So why are you making that more difficult for them?
Of course.
No, I'm just saying. So
I can understand why there's NHLPA alignment on this.
Yeah, and that's why I found myself thinking that even if they wanted to do this, you're not going to get the PA to sign.
There was not NHLPA alignment on the backdiving contracts, and still they made that so.
It's true.
Anyways,
it was a different environment, though. I feel like I don't know. They seem happier. I don't know. I'm still skeptical, but they seem happier. I don't know why. Anyway,
or maybe the teams that are benefiting from this are the teams that came in on Gary's watch and are part of growing the game in non-traditional places. There's that as well.
Like the guys.
Great chat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.